Closed abruptly. Many workers are concerned about a missed payday.
They say the owner is not giving them answers, so they contacted our Mike McKnight.
After a surprise call from her boss, Rachel Johnson told fellow employees that Greenbelly restaurant appears to have financially gone belly up.
Out of the blue, random Monday.
On the way to work.
Yeah, it was about 10-15 minutes before the first shift employees were supposed to arrive.
What didn't arrive on payday Friday were paychecks.
He told us that he was going to come and pay us at 3, Saturday nothing, Sunday nothing, and then Monday nothing. Money stops coming in doesn't mean bills stop coming in.
Alexandra Emerson employed here a few weeks, but Alicia Kohler worked full-time at Greenbelly for 6 years.
Being a single mom, so the fact that we just got no notice whatsoever that this was coming, not even a chance to find another job.
The general manager says Greenbelly had some full-time employees and several part-timers, mostly of high school age. The workers tell me their jobs here aren't just about earning paychecks. They also provided good service to customers, which they say earned them a considerable amount of tips. Employees say the business collected, then distributed their tip money.
Some of us are owed like probably $300, $400 of just tips alone.
The owner of Greenbelly, identified by employees as Mike Shaw, says waiting on new funding, some outstanding invoices, and errors in timekeeping system delayed payroll Friday. But Wednesday afternoon, he wrote them all checks from a personal account.
You calling might have helped our situation out.
Apologizing that pay is about 6 days late, the closed restaurant owner promises all the personal checks will clear the bank.
Satisfied that I got my money, yes.
But what about customers also surprised by the closing of Greenbelly?
We're not open, sorry, we're closed.
You didn't know that?
I did not. I was
Greenbelly sold gift cards, but the owner texted me that he's trying to regroup, and the restaurant has always honored its customers, but he has no timetable on reopening.
Yeah, closed 28 through, we're not really sure.
On your side near 114th and Burke, Mike McKnight, 6 News.
In an email to Mike, the owner of Greenbelly says he's trying to reconcile everything with some alleged theft and an investigation. He didn't provide details. We've not been able to confirm what agency would be involved in an investigation concerning the restaurant.